Hi, so it's been a little while since I've spoken about this subject, which is really the defining issue of the last year and a half. It's just soars above anything else, I think, in terms of news. But before I do that, I was actually watching the England versus Italy match at Wembley for the UEFA final. And, I don't follow football, but I must admit I was watching it and it was very tense, very close, and unfortunately, England didn't prevail. Italy got it, so congratulations to Italy. Celebrations going on in Rome tonight, and no doubt across Italy. Um, from a human point of view, you look at the despair and the pain of defeat in a major sporting event, and you see that in the players. But I don't think anyone can fault them. They've been superb in this tournament, and I'm even saying that as a non-football fan, I can see that to have come this far. And a lot of those guys are still young, so I think there's a lot of potential there. But I'm not going to embarrass myself by using terminology and so on that maybe is misplaced. Because I don't. I'm not really a football fan, but for big events like this, I'll watch World Cup finals, and obviously this was a big one because England was involved. So I think the England team can be very proud of themselves, though, to have come this far. Right. So the main issue in this video is the pandemic, and this looming July the 19th breakout that the Prime Minister has really stressed. I think one of the biggest issues during this period has been mixed messages from the government. Now, this is not an attack video where I'm criticizing Boris Johnson or the government. It's not about that. It's more about my reflections on whether or not it's a good idea to come out at this point. The reason I say it's not an attack video is because I'm reluctant to be too critical of the government. I think this has been an unprecedented challenge. I mean, no prime minister has faced something like this since basically David Lloyd George in the 1918 pandemic. It's the deadliest event actually in Britain since then in terms of the mortality. There's just no way around that. It is. It's a major, profound event, and hit this country particularly hard. Um, I mentioned the football, some people do say, and I think with some legitimacy, that there's double standards in allowing thousands of football spectators into a crowded stadium or a beer garden, but people still can't attend funerals in the way they did before, or weddings. I mean, I was in Newcastle upon Tyne a few months ago, and honestly, you wouldn't think there was a pandemic going on. People were wearing masks, but there was virtually no social distancing. I think social distancing is one of the hardest things to enforce because, in shopping centres, this kind of arrow system, I try consciously to follow it, but at times I admit I slip. If I'm walking through my shopping centre and I want to go to a particular shop, quicker to cut across. But I wear masks in shops. I don't wear masks outside because it's not compulsory, as that is not one of the rules. But I do wear masks in shops, and I think masks and the Duchess of Cornwall made this point. A lot of people resent them, and I resent them. I do not like wearing those masks. Some people have no issue with them; they think they're comfortable, or they're okay with them. I don't. I find them uncomfortable. I don't like them. But I also accept that it's something that reduces the chance of the virus spreading. There is some debate over the exact science of it, i.e., how effective they actually are. But I do think someone wearing a mask is less likely to transmit the virus than someone who isn't. Um, but I don't like them. I find them uncomfortable. And I do think, when July the 19th comes, that is going to be one thing that people will absolutely not miss. The idea of going out and not knowing that you can walk into a shop without these things, it's I think it will be a huge relief to a lot of people. Um, one group of people I have enormous sympathy for throughout this event is people who have legitimate reasons not to wear it. Because we hear this dogma, and the government has done this, You must wear masks. There are people with legitimate reasons not to. For example, rape survivors, people with allergies, people with severe asthma. Those are all legitimate reasons not to wear a mask. Um, and I'm a little bit concerned that the dogma of it means that those people might find themselves discriminated against. For example, my local Starbucks, I think I previously mentioned the barista there, or one of the baristas, I should say. There's others who are friendly and have no issue with, but this particular barista, um, older woman, I don't know if she's a deputy manager or what, but she has a really bad attitude. I don't know her name, but if I did, I wouldn't. It's not, I'm not trying to shame her, but it's just an example of how this has produced, frankly, many tyrants. She has a little bit of power, and I was going into Starbucks a few weeks ago, and I had my mask on, but I was adjusting it, and she immediately somehow thought that I wasn't wearing it. Oh, you need to wear a mask if you're coming in. I clearly was, but I was just adjusting it. There was an Indian family in front of me, and their children were a little bit away, but they weren't being badly behaved. They're just a little bit divided. Oh, you have to stick together. And then it came to the track and trace. Now most places are happy with people to sign a piece of paper, leave your name and number. I think that's sufficient because it's given the information. But she would say, "Oh, it really has to be done on an app." Well, I don't have the app, and my phone can't support that. So, you know, to me, she's an example of someone who has a little bit of power and it goes to her head. There's been others. It's two extremes because you have one contingent of people who are, real hardcore conspiracy theorists. They even go so far as thinking it's all some big plot to keep population control, or it just doesn't exist. Um, and they will go to the extent of hounding public officials, as we saw with the Professor Whitty incident. And I think it's pretty awful when they're coming out with those sort of opinions. I think that's an insult to grieving families. I think it's abhorrent. But the other side of it is people who, they have a bit of power, and I think it goes to their heads because of the rules. And like I said, I think the government has had somewhat mixed messages. So, for example, Transport Secretary Grant Shapps has said he would be totally comfortable with buses and trains continuing to impose mask wearing after July the 19th, whereas Johnson is saying that's all going to be gone. So there's definitely been mixed messages from the government, and that's not wonderful. But I am reluctant to be too critical because the flip side of that is our vaccine rollout has been one of the best in the world. I think we're in the top 10 for rollout success. That's something to be proud of. It's something that I think is very good. I had my first jab, going to get my second in August. Most of the country now, I think, has had at least one. So that's been a very successful thing. And I feel personally that when every adult is vaccinated, or at least when most people are, at the moment in this country, it's not compulsory. But I think when most people are vaccinated, when the most vulnerable are protected, then we can probably say we're out of this. Because I think that some strain of coronavirus is probably going to be around forever. I mean, apparently, and I'm no virologist, so I don't, this is just speaking in layman's terms. So apparently, the strains of the Spanish influenza and even the Black Death still in the human population, but they're so small and they're so insignificant now that those pandemics are effectively over. So probably there will be some sort of strain, or let's say leftover from this forever, or at least for years, decades to come. But I do think when most adults are vaccinated, um, July the 19th, I don't know why that specific date was chosen, but personally, I'm going to remove my mask on that date. Absolutely. I'm sick of it. I do not like the masks. And frankly, there's a lot of people disregarding it now. Now, I'm not of the school of thought, oh, well, everyone else is doing it, so I will. But I do think at this point, the daily death toll is massively reduced from what it was in 2020 when we were seeing 800, 900 people dying every day. Now it's down to two figures. And it's tragic for every person who's lost. But we do have to consider other things, and mental health is one of them. I do think that some of the restrictions will be causing serious anxiety for people. I mentioned the mask wearing mandate. Well, the fact that some people have a green light not to wear it doesn't mean that there won't be others who are kind of thinking it is a universal thing. And I even heard an announcement in Tesco at one point saying, please respect our staff and those and understand that some people don't have to wear it. That's not verbatim, it was to that effect. And I thought that was good that they kind of put that out there because, on one hand, you get people who are selfish and reckless and they don't wear it because they're conspiracy theorists, which I think is just very reckless and selfish. But then you get other people who really do have legitimate reasons for not wearing it. And, for those people to be stigmatized, I think that's very unfair. So it's one unfortunate thing that's come out of this. But to end on a positive note, I also think this has brought out the best in Britain. I think it's brought out neighbourliness. I think it's shown how wonderful our NHS is, albeit under enormous strain. And, the 1% pay rise is a travesty um, for NHS staff. But I do think it has shown the best of us as well. Um, but yeah, July the 19th, as far as I'm concerned, most of the country's vaccinated now. I am definitely of the school of thought that we need to come out of this. There are some people, scientists, medical people, who who are looking at this Delta variant and they're looking at how, as they see it, it would be reckless to come out on July the 19th. But with all due respect to them, they don't have concerns about business or other areas of health, particularly mental health. We cannot be in this situation forever. You know, are we going to say let's just keep staying in lockdown and whilst there's new variants every time? At some point, we have to consider that this is we have to get back to normal. We have to. And for me, one of the most potent symbols of the restrictions is the mask. I loathe them, to be quite honest. I wear them. I do wear it, but I don't like it. I find it uncomfortable. And I think there'll be a massive bonfire of masks on July the 19th or something. Um, I hope there's not going to be a lot of waste. I mean, I don't know if they can be recycled or what, but there must have been billions and billions produced over the last year and a half. Um, I'll round it up there. Let me know your thoughts. Basically, I'm like most people. I just want this to end, but I'm not a conspiracy theorist. This is a very real pandemic, and there is 128,000 grieving families, and we can never, downplay that. It's profound, and my heart really goes out to those people. But we do have to get back to normal or some normality. I personally think there should be an independent inquiry into COVID. I don't agree with those who say it would just be a partisan witch hunt because it wouldn't be led by the Labour Party, it would be independent. That's the point. I mean, I don't think you can have an event on this scale and just not learn lessons. The government, I sympathise with Johnson and his cabinet insofar as they face something that's unprecedented. But at the same time, there has been mixed messaging, and I'm sure they've made mistakes. But it's not a case of, trying to blame them for the pandemic. I think China's a lot to answer for in terms of its initial response, in terms of the fact that instead of acting immediately, it punished the doctors who tried to who tried to do something about it. That must never be forgotten. But as for us, each country, needs to be assessed on its own record. And when you compare Britain to, say, Brazil, where Bolsonaro has come out with some outrageous statements, um, I really don't think we're the worst. Um, I'm sure there's areas to criticise Boris Johnson, but by the same token, this is a man who himself, was in critical care and has been through it, as have a lot of people. So yeah, I really do think July the 19th, that has to be it because I think if there was another lockdown after that, it would lead to serious social unrest. I believe that and a mental health crisis. That has to be it. Um, I don't think that new variants justify a never-ending lockdown. That's my gut feeling. Let me know your thoughts.